Nonke, kubathula kanhle, Nonke.
There's a lot of people with great ideas, but because of lack of experience, it's a guy at the corner and like they're funny and like, we should what? But it's like you'd find that what they're thinking to be against.
And welcome to the Sit Down, where we have conversations with creators from across this beautiful motherland of ours. And today I want to do something special and introduce our producer for this amazing show.
Hi.
And the reason for this will be revealed in a minute or so. My name is Mark Omboya, filmmaker and an all-round story lover. And today we are sitting down with a director and producer who I consider one of the best in South Africa, Kobi and Kholi. And for Kobi, she is an award-winning film producer for one of the films called Umtashato for Soul City, which aired on CNBC, while Kholi is an amazing director and the co-creator of Rhythm City. There's a lot you're gonna find out soon. Sit down and settle in.
Ngabe ukhona yini phakathi kwenu ongahambisani nalomshado na?
I want to say thank you so much for that conversation we had over the podcast and just how intimate and how honest it was. And I think anyone who listens to that will have such a revelation on the journey of a creative and the journey of building a company. And I want to jump in and on this section and ask, what does it take to do a TV series, to put together a TV series?
It takes a good idea. Like, I think that's the first place to be at. If you launch at a good idea is an idea that can birth possibilities, right? Because sometimes you get stuck when you're doing series because you had an impressive idea. You know, when you say it and people say, that sounds good. But then when you have to unravel it, and it tends to just not have the mileage you need to run a thing. So that's the first thing, to have an idea that can actually sustain.
Yeah.
The second thing is,
and before you say the second thing, and I'll remember to bring you back to the second thing. But how do you know this is an idea that can sustain that amount of length and time?
I think good is a subjective thing, right? So that's good. Whether it's good or not, you say it's good because I don't imagine that you're gonna sit down and say I'm gonna create a series, but you don't know that it's good.
Yeah. So like, I've got this bad idea, I'm gonna do it anyway.
You know what I mean? Like, so let's assume good, because if you like it, then that means it's good, right?
But also, I think there's a context to. It's not like we woke up out of a 20-year slumber and like, I've got a great. It's like we've been working television and we kind of like have a grasp of how story works and that kind of thing. So when you're saying it's a great idea, there's a bit of context, I think, to that, because there's a lot of people with great ideas, but because of lack of experience, it's a guy at the corner and like they're funny and like, we should what? But it's like you'd find that what they're thinking to be a great idea is just an obsession with one scene, right? But it's not a narrative that can fill up like 26 episodes, for example.
So what's the second thing then? What's the second thing that you need to come with after the idea?
A great sense of characters, like and by a great sense of characters, it's understanding who they are, but most importantly, their relationships and the tensions thereof. Because sometimes you can create worlds, right, that have interesting characters, but they're not interacting in interesting ways, right? So then you're not yielding as much drama as you can kind of get out of it, or it's just not pulling the right strings, you know.
And I think for us with Matatile, for example, I think a part of it was nostalgia, right? So in terms of South African drama, we come from a history of very big animated like characters, and those are the characters when we were growing up that we fell in love with. And in recent times, as we are growing up and also being in the industry, we found the characters that we were watching a bit too intellectualized. So people are smarter than you'd care for, right? So the characters, but there isn't that soul for somebody who grew up in the township to say, yo, I know this character. Oh, you know what I mean? Without having to be intellectual about it, you know.
Yeah.
I know, for example, with Matadila, like some of my characters, not all of them, they were a bit more theatrical, I think, for lack of a better word, because we were, I think, reminiscing of those kind of stories that were told, like when we were growing up and watching those characters. And not theatrical in a way that is offensive and it feels very hammy, but theatrical in the sense that you watch people and like you can, like, you know, these, like, they still real people, you know, this uncle, and like it doesn't make sense, you can't rationalize why he is the way he is, but you've seen this kind of person and he's over the top and he's just stubborn, there's not, you know what I mean, and they're big in terms of their personality and stuff. So that's the thing that we felt like we were missing in terms of like watching what was already available. And we're like, oh, actually that would be cool to kind of like take a leaf from that page and bring it back in a new way. That's what I think tickles our fancy most of the time in terms of when we're thinking about stories and when we're thinking about characters, you know.
uZulu ibile gorha elikhulu lakwaXhosa wahlangana nezinhlanga zezilwanyana jonga wena mamela lento mna endikushiyile
ubani ngilona basanxusa bathu amahela lehlotho
xiqa ke mntu ndini endawuthi ndimpambe eliqaphane neentshaba zethu omuna hezi izintshaba zethu.
So you've come up, you think, okay, the idea is interesting, the characters definitely have relationships that can develop and contrast in such a way that, you know, it provokes a journey for them to go through, so that this change can happen over time and in a way that the audience hopefully is drawn to and attracted to. What's the technicality? Where do you move from this point onwards? You know, how do you transform this amazing potential idea to the point where you're actually on set and Kobe is refusing to add you 2 extras?
It starts off with going to a broadcaster to pitch your idea, and if they like it, then the next thing is to develop that idea into a story that will eventually become a script, which will be
how do you package that? How do you package that so that potentially the audiences, the broadcaster can
say yes?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got the big concept, and then that big concept you write it into a synopsis. So a synopsis is pretty much like a summary of what the concept is. And that synopsis, like per page. In that page also you'd have like a broad strokes of where it starts, what the middle, where it's gonna end, so that they have an idea of what it is. And then you also then get into the characters to say why, how it's gonna be exciting and that kind of thing. And also part of that package is who you think would like to see that kind of content, because then you're speaking to their audiences, right? To say, based on the audience that you guys want to have or that you already have, this would appeal to them because it will resonate in this way and that way, right? So you tick those boxes, and then also you say, I mean, the broadcaster as well, there's also the business side of it. So you kind of know what the budgets would be, and the budget is calculated with like a cost per minute rate, and then you're saying, it's not an idea so big that it can't be achieved with this budget. And this is how you're gonna get your production value out of this budget, out of this concept. So when you're going to pitch this idea, it will be the concept, it will be the characters, it will be the beginning, middle, and end. And then Holly's job as a director or a creative director at that point is to pitch a director's treatment that says this is how it's going to look like. Also, maybe sometimes to reference other works so that the people you're pitching to have a reference to connect it with. And so that's kind of like package. And also part of the package is, this is all great and well, but also this is our credentials as a team to take the vision from being a dream to being an actual thing that you can invest in. So we're not just 2 people with a good idea. So I've been in the industry for this long, and this is what I've done. This is Holly, and he's been in the industry for this long, and this is how this is what he's done. So that they like the idea, and also they have trust and faith in the people to deliver the product. And
Coley, what's that process like? Being able, you have so many voices. I would imagine in like the TV series, because you have so many partners. You have the writers, of the broadcaster, you have your producer. How do you internalize all of this as a director? And still fuse and like put in your vision as well.
Yeah, I suppose most of the time the vision is there from the beginning, right? From like conception of the idea to the developing of the idea and stuff, and you just make sure, because sometimes the mistake people make is you write a thing, and then suddenly only after the thing is written you decide. Like the stylistic approach, right? Yeah. But then those things don't quite match, and then you either like, and then you're on set and it's not working out, and you're wondering why. So it has to be infused. It has to be ingrained into it. I mean, the broadcaster would have bought into it if you're able to express it clearly to them, right? And then maybe the points of difference would be the nuances rather than the big things, right? In terms of maybe this drama doesn't pay off very well, and which doesn't really affect things stylistically. Because what you want is then once everything has gone through the writing process, you're ending up with a script that can be implemented style-wise, that's ready to be implemented style-wise, right? Yeah. Because if you don't, it's not gonna implement. It's that basic, right? Yeah. And then you have to actually you have to have thought about what will make the style work and what won't make the style work, right? So as simple a thing as cast, it's like what kind of cast are you getting, and what do they bring to the table? What shortcomings do they have? How are you gonna work with those? Who's gonna shoot this thing for you, and what's their strengths and weaknesses, and does that talk to the style that you're trying to execute? What are going to be the challenges of the day, of each day? What if you were to lose one thing over the other? What are the choices? Those things have to be clear in your mind before you walk in, because I'm sure you've experienced this, but once you get on set, all dreams die. Right?
And it's not because of me.
And when they die, you need to know which ones to rescue and which ones to let go of.
Anamkelekanga apha hambani
rimona nje kawubana ribatla go tlamisa bohadi
nimkhanyele umntana wam ngoku nize nibaleka nizothetha ngelobola into lonto
abakasanqu bayanamkela
bakaye banna bamutsu
mobiza beauty uthi ndiyambiza makazapha so thetha ngento yenhlawulo
ufuna ikhulu lenkomo ngalomntana
akhinathona unonhle sanqu yena umuntu nje uchip lo mntana bekwa into na
etsa phoso ka onyela le
thina wena into lento uthethayo
ke imme ngwana hae
not le yemzukulwana wam
And for me, just as almost like a wrap-up question, have you, both of you, especially on the directing part, have you had to invite other directors? And if there are those moments, what was that like? How is it like to allow someone else to almost not take over, but manage or be the caretaker of your ideas and this thing that you've spent so much time putting together?
I mean, we have, like in my third year, there were 2 directors. It's always interesting. It's a thing that you need to get, if especially if you're serious about being a company, you need to get good at and better at, in the sense of you mustn't be bottlenecks. Yeah. It's like it can't be that things can't get done because Holly is busy doing other stuff, right? Mm. You want to actually get in people. You want to be running machines at a given time and all. So I don't know. How was that experience like? Actually,
I don't know from a director's point of view. I'll tell you from like a producer's point of view. So with Matatila as a first producer, I was a head writer and pretty much like a showrunner, right?
Yeah.
So I was head writing, I was line producing, I was producing. So even when we started shooting, I was still working on scripts, right? So we would have like a batch of scripts to start off with, but I'm still editing, I'm still editing. I'm dealing with budgets. I'm dealing with everyday stuff. I'm dealing with channel.
Jeez.
I'm dealing with all of that stuff. So it was a lot, I think, for me specifically to undertake. And that lesson like taught me to let go, right? To be willing to let go and to believe that it's for the better. With Holly and directing, like he says, he doesn't remember, but I don't think he had any qualms with bringing in another director. I think it was not like an emergency thing. Just like, now I'm not coping. Now I need to bring in somebody. I think it was always part of the plan, because it's just the foresight of also our our turnaround times normally with South African TV are very tight, right? So it's just that foresight to say, okay, I'm gonna go and set and direct, but then already whilst we're shooting, post needs to start happening so we can start delivering episodes. So when that happens, I can't be on set and then there's a bottleneck of post of stuff that's not going out. So he brought in another director to take, I think, like half of the series, or just under half, right, of the series, so that he can focus on post. Because also don't forget, which is part of what he was saying earlier, that in this instance he's not just a director, he's also an executive producer, because that's his company. So it doesn't, like, even though the picture looks great, it still needs to be packaged and delivered, because if it's not getting packaged and delivered, it's going to reflect back on us as a company. And also there's a lot of pressure, I think, for Black companies to not want to be flops, you don't want to be a flop, because you've been working with established mainly white companies and they're known to deliver and stuff. So you don't want to be the one who gets the gig and then you flop at it, because then you're closing doors for other people who look like you coming in. So there's that. So there's that pressure, but I wouldn't necessarily want to call it pressure. I think there's that responsibility. So when you're aware of it, it forces you to be conscious of it and the responsibility that comes with it, and then it informs the kind of decisions that you make. And part of those would be, like, even though I'd love to direct all 26 episodes, it's not practical, it's not viable. It might fire back and hinder our next project.
Right. And I think that for me is the perfect way to end this conversation. And I want to say thank you guys so much for taking your time and being here and sharing all that information and sharing your experience. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I appreciate both of you so much. In case someone wants to ask a question or find out more about you all, where do they find you? Either, both, one of you, each of you.
If it's a deep question, they can just send an email to info@brandedsoul.co.za. Otherwise, we are both on. I'm not on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, but I'm not that deep on Instagram. But they can DM me on Instagram. I am Kobi Ledwaba, KHOBI Ledwaba, LEDWABA on Instagram. They can just send me a DM, and then I could take it from there. But they mustn't come to my account hoping to learn anything. There's nothing to learn there. It's just vanity all the way that I'm proud of. But they can DM me, or if it's a long question, they can send an email to info@brandedsoul.co.za.
info@brandedsoul.co.za. I think that anything on social media is a waste of time. I'm hardly ever there. I don't read anything. info@brandedsoul.
What are you doing? Come on, express yourself. All right, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was so nice.
Cool. This has been so cool and so much fun. Like, and now I'm inspired to do my own podcast because I want to interview you because you're always doing so many things. So many things, like so varied things. And also I've never been to Kenya. So I think for the last 2
He
years
didn't tell you?
Fully.
Why did you bring her? Come on, come.
No,
you know
because
this
he
is
was
the
choosing.
place. Come on.
But Kenya is like up on my list of places to visit, and like I'm only gonna come when you're available to host because I know that you're gonna be in good company.
100% available. Let me know when it is. You will experience
Cool.
Kenya in a whole new way.
So that's what I'm talking about. Let this coronavirus stuff, man, end. Eh?
But some of that Nyama Choma.
That's
Exactly.
showing off now.
Thank you guys. Have an amazing night.
Cool, man.
Thanks,
Cool. You too.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, you can catch a more in-depth conversation that I have with Kobe and Kholi in our podcast. Link in description. Wakarema.
See you on the next one. See you on the next one.
See you on the next one.
Bye.